Chair, and thanks, Minister, for coming in, and to your staff in Egg House. Gordon, I wish you the best of luck in your new position. The one thing I'd ask you to be blunt and straight to us, give it as it is, and there'd be a lot of appreciation for that. Minister, just one thing I want to pick up on. Early on, you were saying there, you were talking about the forestry, that there was a lot of farmers, an awful lot issued basically licenses more than, I don't know, was it 5,000 or 6,000, you said, hectares or whatever, issued that hasn't been picked up on. Well, you know and I know, and the dog on the street knows, that some of them are going back 3, 4, 5 years, and you brought in glass and you brought in other things that farmers weren't waiting around for and won't wait around for, and that's the reason why they're not being picked up on. And you have a job at hand. I don't envy you with the figures you're looking at, 8,000 hectares, no matter what scheme you bring out, to bring basically a bit of confidence back in it after what has gone on. And I know there's licensing issues and all that, but I would put it to you, you talked about the 28,000, I think it's 28,000 on the new scheme. When you add the planting grant and all on it, it's a 100-year project that you're giving your hectare for. So I think that needs to be recognised. If you plant hardwoods in the hectare, you get the 28,000. You're 100% right in that. Between the 22 and I think it's 6 or something for the whole lot will work out 28,000. But you won't see your hectare again. You'll never see it, or 2 generations won't. It's who'll have the carbon credits off the forester?
So we want to ensure that goes to the farmer.
Right.
It's currently being considered a framework at European level as to how carbon credits and carbon sequestration and carbon trading, and the objective there is to ensure that's with the farmer. Okay.
Now, I'm not going to be nitpicking. First of all, you know, the new cap, I've supported you on it, right? And I think the one thing I would ask, and I know that you were in Tuam last night, your department, and I think you're in Cavan next week. But the more you can do of town hall meetings, because I'd be the first to say, and you know, opposition didn't popular for them to say, a lot of farmers have to get, they need to learn or need to know the different schemes that's out there. Some of them are still mesmerised by it, and you'll see a heading on the journal that you have to cut cows, and then they're ringing up wondering, is this compulsory? And then, which it isn't, and then you'll see a heading, farmers going to get so much in organic or whatever, and then you'll see a different heading, and they're nearly bamboozled with all the stuff that's out there. But I think information to farmers, because there's a fair few quid there if you follow the money and know how to follow the money. And it's awful important as well that for a farmer that's going into acres or A and C, that you follow which is the better measure for you. You know, you're right, if you're going into riparian zone, or sorry, organic, the riparian zone is like 1,500 a hectare, where as if the low input permanent pasture, the equivalent is like 200, but you could get 300 in organic. And I think that's awful important for farmers. The one query, or there's a few queries I have, I understood in the overseas funding budget, I see it's in again, that we paid all that a few years ago. I remember Ian here, that we sort of front loaded and paid it all off. Why are we paying it again? That's my first question. Second question is, there seems to be a lot of money in the fisheries side now, and I'm no expert on fishing, but there seems to be like 6 million that's not paid out as an industry that, from everything I look at, is under pressure. I do worry about the 46 million in the environmental schemes. That's where farmers didn't go back into loss or extend the contract, I presume. 46 million is a lot of money. Like if you just add that 46 and the 3 million ANZ, it's nearly 50 million that could be out there to farmers that they never got. And in the line, and the chair brought it up earlier on, is there, say we have less of a spend in the TB, even though I think a report yesterday is saying that we're under a bit of pressure on it. I was in Brussels yesterday, so I didn't actually read the report, but I think it's important to know that, to note that as well. In relation to the forestry programme, Minister, and you spoke about the new forestry programme. My understanding is, yes, in broadleaves there is an increase, but if you look at the premium with the rejigging that has been done in the spruce side of it, and the percentage after bringing in of hardwoods and the extra cost involved, that percentage for them is very low, in my opinion. It's just a thing I've noticed on it. I spoke to you last week, and in fairness to you, you have said that young entrants are going to be brought into and I welcome that. In the line of, we look at the 46 million, or roughly, on the glass that hasn't been claimed, because obviously farmers may not have land, the lease might be up or whatever, so it's a loss to them. But can I ask you to do one thing, Minister? At the moment, we have Teagasc planners are ringing their are telling their farmers in some instances that they cannot take them, and they're with Teagasc. Some of the people have got phone calls. We have private planners. I was speaking to someone that knocked off their phone Sunday evening because they just cannot cope with the amount of farmers. And would you please, for the sake of, well, first of all, them and probably their lives at home, but on top of that, the farmers out there, we're not saying every farmer in the world is going to get into it, but it's going to cause an awful divide where a planner is saying to someone that was with them 5 years, and this is both with Teagasc and with the ordinary planners, the private planners, I cannot get to you. And would you do it now rather than the last hour or the last minute, and then where sort of the harm has been done and the people have fell out with each other, to put it simple, because there's people being refused at the moment about doing plans, and that's not a good situation. And I'm not saying that everyone will get in, and by no means am I saying that, but what it's doing is that the planners are basically ending up as being called X, Y and Z, not the nicest names in the world, because they won't be able to do it. And we should give everyone a fair crack at it, and hopefully after that try and get them in as many as possible. But I would ask you, I would urge you to do that. This isn't a populist thing, it's about the planners themselves are physically not able to be able, you have this app on your phone that you have to go out and take the photos and all of that, and it's taken a lot longer than doing something on a desktop, and I think it would be helpful if you could do that. Also, on the ANC, I know you said there was 5,000 farmers that didn't reach the target. The average ANC, if them all were up to the top, is 1.5 million. Is there less farmers now applying? Is the question, or there's more to a reason than the 5,000? Because if you paid every one of them the full 3,000 or whatever bear that they were on the mountains, they get a higher rate. It wouldn't work out near that. But other than that, Minister, look, all I'm saying is it would be good if the department, and I know they're doing it, that these schemes would be, I'm an awful believer in town hall meetings. It's a pity, in my opinion, that, and the department has done a few of them, might be no harm if it's all helped out, but I think it would be helpful to know the different schemes that's there for farmers to try and follow, and what's the most benefit to them at a time, because as you've said, and I welcome the change in the single farm payment. Like I stood in March with you on that. I welcome the likes of the ANC, even though it's going to stand still. That payment will stand still, but I've always said you need acres for acres to be. You need. It's tough. I was talking to a farmer today that had 8 hectares, and it's tough on them because they're trying to find which would be the best. But in the line of that scheme, the beef genomics as well, and the new beep that'll be that you announced, that we need to make sure that the farmers know how to basically avail of what's the best monies out there for them. So thank you other than that.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Fitzmaurice, for the various points that you've made there and questions you've asked, and just at the outset as well to recognise the fair wind and proportionate commentary and the balanced assessment that you have given to CAP, and recognise that. I acknowledge that, and I think you have been fair in relation to the strengths and weaknesses and challenges around that, and what it means, and importantly what it will mean for farmers. And I think that has been not always the case, but is encouraging to see that you call it out as you've seen it, and call it out in a balanced way. In relation to the World Food Programme, first of all, so we would have forward paid that last year. So we forward paid this year's money at the end of last year. We're doing the same again now this year, and that sort of has been the case for the last few years. In relation to fisheries, some of that €6 million in fisheries is down to an underspend by the SFPA, the Sea Fisheries Protection Authority, in relation to staffing, not starting as early as had been projected, and then some of the remainder around delays in mainly local authority piers and harbours funding, and the drawdown of that by those in terms of funding that has been committed to. In relation to forestry, I think overall, I take your point in relation to, it's a fair point in relation to the amount of time that for native broadleaf trees, that they will be in the ground longer. I do though think, for those that want to make a contribution, want a good income over the next 20 years, so I think the tax-free aspect of it is significant as well. And then ultimately there will be an income from that. It will take longer, but a good income too. But I think when people can see that 20 years, it will encourage. And listen, I mean, what we need to see is farmers, not planting their whole farm, but looking at their farm to see where it can be incorporated in a way that delivers income and brings all the many other benefits to the environment and to biodiversity, and just to the makeup and assets of the farm as well. And in relation to the conifer, the increases aren't as significant there, but I think they're still a very strong proposition. And of course, your commercial value and timeline involved for that is shorter and more in line and more in sight as well. In relation to acres and the extension of our planners, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I've been discussing this with planners and farmers from the outset, and my phone, no more than your own I'm sure, has been going hopping very strong, and with messages in that the last few days. So Andreas Moynihan asked me this in the Dáil yesterday as well, and I told him I was considering the situation, would bring clarity to it very soon. I understand the pressure that advisors are under in particular. It is a massive challenge, and so within the next day, I expect to bring clarity to that. Deputy Fitzmaurice, and I'm working with the team at the moment on that. So by within the next day, there'll be clarity on that. And I want to acknowledge the work the planners have done. They are going flat to the mat, weekends and everything, and it's a needs must here as such, because we only have a certain window. We want to get as many in as possible for next year. So there's only a certain amount of flexibility we have to, but we'll bring clarity to that in the next few days. And I understand the pressure that they're under, and indeed the appetite. And it's good to see the appetite among farmers for the scheme, and it's good to see, in fact, the positive, feedback from farmers as well in relation to the scheme. And there's certainly if you, as farmers, have got to learn about it, and as meetings have happened, and as they've started and engaged in the application process, it's been very well received. And I want to see as many as we can get in. In relation then to the ANC, so. With 5,000, it's difficult to know from year to year, but there's 5,000 eligible applications that didn't meet the required minimum stocking requirements. So in a budget of 250 million, that can lead, it's hard to be clear in that, and you have to make sure you have sufficient provision. So it's 3 million, which is the change and the difference there this year. So I think that covers most of the points, Deputy Fitzmaurice. Thank you.